Welcome back to Steeler Thoughts and Chief Feelings. This is a film review episode, and in this episode we're reviewing the NFL kickoff game, Ravens at Chiefs, on Thursday night to start the NFL season. I wanted to thank all of you that have been following along. We do the film reviews and we have our video podcasts on YouTube, and we do clips of both of them we put out on social media on Instagram, on TikTok, and on Twitter. And our handle for all three is the same, at STCF715. Also, for those of you that are interested in following along in real time during Chiefs and Steelers games, as well as immediately after Chiefs and Steelers games, we are on Twitter. We're kind of live tweeting the games, and then we start posting some clips of the games with some discussion immediately after the games are over. So if you want to follow on real time, Twitter is the place for you at STCF715. If you want clips of what we're doing, they're on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And for those of you that want audio versions of the podcast, they are available. The podcast name is Steeler Thoughts and Chief Feelings, and those podcast feeds are available wherever you download podcasts. But now let's get into the film review. We've got several plays to discuss, kind of break down what's been going on. And the first play we're going to start with is on the Chiefs' first drive with the ball. So at this point, they're down 7-0. The Ravens had come down and scored a touchdown, and this is the Chiefs' answer. They were able to move the ball, and here they have first down right around the 21-yard line of the Ravens. The first thing we notice, the Chiefs are in 12 personnel. That means they've got one running back. There's Isaiah Pacheco. They've got two tight ends. So 1, 2 gives you 12. Here's Noah Gray over here, and this is Travis Kelce over here. Because you've got one running back and two tight ends, that means you've got two wide receivers. There's Xavier Worthy right there, and there's Rashee Rice over here. First thing to notice is that the Chiefs are in somewhat of condensed formation. They've got everybody in tight toward the ball. Nobody's really out wide, and so because of that, the Ravens have matched, and they're kind of condensed too. That's important because the play is going to be run to the edge. So the Chiefs kind of get the Ravens kind of condensed, and then they're going to try to outflank them. Okay, so we can get started with, we're going to start here with Noah Gray's motion. So Noah Gray is going to motion. He's set right here, and so he's going to motion up here and come in tight on the right side. And then you may recognize this play is going to ultimately be an end around to Xavier Worthy. He's going to come around the end, which is why they've got everybody kind of tightened in to try to get Xavier Worthy outside the defense. And so what they're going to do is they're going to sell a run to the left, and they're going to do this they're going to have Trey Smith pull over to the left, and Noah Gray is going to start with a pulling motion over to the left as well. So let's kind of move over there. So here's the snap, and as you can see, Trey Smith, Noah Gray pulling over to the left. Here comes Mahomes faking the handoff to Isaiah Pacheco. So they're trying to get the defense flowing over here to the offense's left, and if you look, Xavier Worthy is already starting to come for his end around. But then I want you to watch Noah Gray. So Noah Gray is pulled over here, and what he's going to do is he's going to stop his motion and actually help lead block for Xavier Worthy. And if you notice, Trey Smith completes his pull, but every other lineman, once the ball is handed off to Xavier Worthy, every other lineman actually comes to try to help build a huge convoy for Worthy. So let's run it and see. Now you see, look, the ball's been handed off to Worthy. Trey Smith has completed his pull. Look at Noah Gray has already turned around, and look at the convoy. They've got a huge group of people forming a wall. And so really all Worthy has to kind of do is outrun him, and he's off to the races. Really, he had to outrun him too. So the Chiefs kind of set it up. They get such a big convoy that Worthy ultimately only has to deal with two defenders who you can see his speed. Like, look at his speed. There's no chance. So a very well-designed play coupled with a very fast and athletic player. And some of the kind of key things to look at as we go through here. So here's Noah Gray, and then you can really watch his motion. Cuts in and comes right back out. If you notice, Travis Kelce blocks, I believe that's Kyle Van Noy right here on the edge. And this block is crucial because if you notice, he gets enough of him that Van Noy goes down to a knee. So let's watch this here. Watching this block right there. Van Noy goes down to a knee, and then look, he ends up being the one who's almost closest to catching Worthy. So Kelce interfering with him and getting him slowed up is what created just enough of a gap right here for Worthy to go through. And Worthy was able to cut this up right by him and go and score. We can see it from this view, from the end zone view even better. So here, remember, there's Noah Gray with his motion. So remember that Noah Gray is going to come, pivot, and lead this thing. Trey Smith is going to actually pull. And let's watch what it does to the linebackers. As these two guys start going, look at 40 right here. 40 starts taking steps over to the right. Look at Roquan Smith over here. He also starts taking steps over to the right. Now Smith starts to recover faster, but look how far out of position 40 is here. So the initial action helps move people away. And right now at this point, like, these guys are done from the play standpoint, right? There's no way they're going to be involved. And here is the other thing I wanted to point out was this Kelce block on Van Noy right here. So crucial block here on Van Noy. He gets enough of him right there to get him down to a knee. And then if you follow Van Noy, he is going to run down the line to try to get to Worthy, and he just can't get there. So that block from Kelce ended up being crucial to create that gap for Worthy to get through. And this is the reason I bring this up is because when tight end play is discussed, there's a lot of, in my opinion, just dogma that people repeat without really like paying much attention. That, oh, Kelce's not a blocker. Kelce's not a blocker, so that dings him when they compare him to people like Rob Gronkowski or George Kittle. And what my argument is A, if you think Kelce doesn't block, then I think you're just not paying attention. Like, I mean, he blocks. But if your argument is that, well, you know, Gronk would have pancaked this guy, or, you know, he's basically like a tackle blocker. Kittle would have pancaked Van Noy. My counter to that is, in the run game, when you're blocking, your block just has to be good enough. If you're blocking well enough that you'd complete your assignment, it doesn't really matter beyond that. And that's what Kelce does here. Kelce's taking on a defensive end, and he blocks him well enough that he cannot disrupt the play. That's the goal. And so if you're going to ding Kelce because his block isn't as dominant as somebody else's, I think you're missing the point. You know, he's blocking well enough to do what is needed to be done by a tight end as a blocker. You don't get extra credit in the NFL. You don't get style points. It doesn't matter. It's like if you pass the class, you pass the class. And that's what Kelce does as a blocker. And so people that try to decrease his credentials when comparing him to other tight ends, I think entirely miss the point when they just use blocking as a criterion. First of all, blocking is a lot less impactful than catching passes, right? So you're already talking about the less important of the things that a tight end does, but Kelce does it well enough. So if you're going to say that you want to rate another tight end better because of like their blocking style points, I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, the goal here is to get your guy so that he can't make a play and disrupt the play. That's exactly what Kelce does. He gets Van Noy out of the play. He's not able to catch up to Worthy. Worthy scores a touchdown. There you go. That's what you want out of your tight end when blocking, and that's what Kelce does when he blocks. He does what you want. The next play we're going to look at here is a third down from the Ravens. At this point, the Chiefs and Ravens are tied 7-7. And the Ravens have a third down at their own 48-yard line. Now, Spags is going to send a blitz. And the counter that the Ravens had been making to a lot of the Chiefs' coverages is they had been sending quick running backs like Justice Hill out to the flat and taking advantage of the Chiefs sending kind of exotic blitzes that require someone to get out there and account for Justice Hill. And they'd been doing this pretty successfully. The Chiefs were not a team that gave up first downs in 3rd and 10 plus. And the Ravens had a lot of success converting those 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12s by just dumping off to backs. So let's see what happened on this particular play. So the Chiefs are going to run a fairly interesting blitz. So what they're going to do is they're going to kind of stunt their tackles. So they're going to have Wharton cross this way. Jones is going to cross this way. And then they're going to send linebackers blitzing, like scraping around the stunting tackles. So Wharton's going to come here, and Bolton is going to follow Wharton. Jones is going to come here, and Tranquil is going to follow Jones. Dana is going to kind of rush to the edge here, and Karlaftis is going to rush here. And the idea is they're kind of trying to overload this area and see if they can get someone free. Because they're committing so many people to the rush, they've got man coverage back here. So Trent McDuffie is manned up on Zay Flowers. Shamari Connor is manned up on Mark Andrews. And you have Jalen Watson manned up on the receiver over here. I can't see who it is. I think it might be Aguilar, but I'm not sure. Who's accounting for the back? That's got to be Justin Reid. So Justin Reid has a ton of ground to cover here. Now, the idea is they're hoping that someone can get free. So let's look up here first. Let's kind of process the blitz. Here they come, and you can see here comes Wharton coming this way, and Jones is going to come around. And you can see Bolton already starting to follow Wharton. Here they go. So what I believe is supposed to happen is Wharton is trying to take this lineman into this lineman and hopefully allow for Bolton to get around. And I think the same thing is kind of happening here, that Jones is trying to come across the face of these linemen and give Tranquil a place to go around. And it really looks like it kind of should have opened up for Tranquil. I almost feel like Tranquil may have... I think he was waiting for Jones to engage this guy, and he may have waited a second too long, because as he's trying to get around, the interior lineman actually manages to get a hold of him and to block him. So the blitz, though creative, was picked up really well. So part of the reason it was picked up really well is Isaiah Likely does a great job one-on-one with Mike Dana. So if the tight end can neutralize somebody, then suddenly you've got 5 blockers for 5 players. And Karlaftis does okay. He's kind of getting around the edge, but he is getting pushed around. And the other 4 kind of get caught up in the muck. So the Ravens do a good enough job picking it up, at least for Jackson to make a fairly unimpeded quick throw. And you can see what they're looking at. They see the back going out into the flat, so Jackson's just going to go out and hit him like he had several times to that point. And here's the first down marker here. I hope that, Justice Hill can beat Justin Reid, one-on-one with a quick back and a safety. Well, Justin Reid had different ideas. Watch how quickly he closes. Justin Reid sees what's happening, and he knows, this is, I think, really smart football here. He knows that once the back has the ball and gets set, it's a lot harder to make an open field tackle than it is to disrupt a guy who's just trying to corral the ball or has just caught the ball. So I think the first thing to note is once this throw is made, look how fast Justin Reid accelerates. He's like, I'm not going to wait for you to catch this ball and start trying to make moves. Let me get there now. And he gets there and lays a huge hit on Justice Hill before anything can happen and makes a big stop. But I think that the real big key here is Reid realizing, like, I got to get there now before this guy has a chance to try to make some move. And it's players like Justin Reid that make it possible to risk running these kinds of exotic blitzes that may or may not work. In this case, they didn't work. But when you've got someone like him that'll fly in there, clean it up, lay a huge hit, end the drive. I really think Justin Reid, I've said this for, I feel like over a year now, and I feel like Justin Reid is the player in the NFL right now who does the best job of laying really hard hits without drawing flags. Like, he lays great hits and they're clean hits. So here you can get a nice view of this blitz. So here's Bolton's coming around and he's following Wharton, and Chris Jones is going to come around and Tranquil's going to follow him. And ideally, I think you would want to try to get him free around, but Wharton's not able to occupy 2. And it looks like Chris Jones was on his way to occupying 2. It's kind of hard to tell what happened, because here's Tranquil. It's almost like Tranquil hugged the inside to prevent this guy from getting him, but he didn't get around Jones fast enough, is what it seems like, and he allowed the guard to get hands on it. It feels like Tranquil might have been able to come around and get free. In any case, Jackson gets the throw off so fast, like he's already thrown it. So, I mean, he was going to make this throw anyway, regardless. They got a quick pass off, which is one thing that's the goal of a blitz, right? To get the ball out of the quarterback's hands quickly. And in this case, they do. But the kind of key is Justin Reid, who gets there quickly. And look at the hit. Clean hit, great hit. He's a great tackler in space, and he's a great enforcer in today's modern NFL, who knows how to make hits that deter players without committing penalties. The Ravens with the ball again. At this stage, the game is still 7-7, so each team scored a touchdown on their first drive, and then each team punted on the next drive. Now the Ravens get the ball back at the 20. Here's the first play that they're going to run on this drive. The Ravens are in 21 personnel. The first 2 is because there are 2 running backs, Henry and Ricard, and then there's 1 tight end right here. So that's 2 running backs, 1 tight end. That's 21 personnel, and then the other 2 must be receivers. And so they start off motioning Patrick Ricard over, so he's tight, so it's like they have 2 tight ends on the edge here. And if you look at the Chiefs, they are definitely showing something, because they've got Chenal up on the line, Justin Reid's up on the line, Nick Bolton's close to the line, so they're threatening blitz, kind of unclear where it's going to come from. They've got 1 single high safety. So what they end up doing is that Chenal fakes a blitz and steps back. Justin Reid ends up coming and blitzing. And what they do in coverage is they end up with man coverage here. Brian Cook ends up as a deep safety. Bolton comes out as the robber. And Tranquil is responsible for Derrick Henry. Both the tight end and the fullback end up staying in to block. I think partially is that they were worried about the threat of Chenal blitzing. And so they end up only with the 2 wide receivers in pass patterns, and Henry comes out and leaks late. So the man of the hour, the one to watch here, is Chris Jones. What ends up happening is the Ravens attempt to, once Chenal backs out, they use both the tight end and fullback to try to block Karlaftis, and they're using the guard and tackle to try to block Chris Jones. What helps the Chiefs in this scenario is that the Ravens actually run a play action pass. So they're blitzing into a play action, which is always nice because it takes longer for the quarterback to get to a place where he's surveying the field. So you see here, look at Chenal kind of faking blitz still here before he drops off. And then here's Reid coming in off the edge. And then watch Chris Jones. So the double team is from these 2 guys. And what he does is he comes to the outside shoulder of the outside guy and ends up tossing him aside and getting around him. And the guard isn't able to get out there. So he ends up essentially running around the double team. So let's watch these 3 guys right over here. watch Jones come and get around the outside player, and the inside guard is not able to keep up with him. So there are two guys trying to block him. One guy is only the outside guy ends up ever getting hands on him, and the guard's contact is essentially inconsequential at this point. Chris Jones is by. And he does enough as he gets around to grab Lamar Jackson's arm right here, and he forces a fumble, which actually is not recovered. So it's going to end up being recovered by Felix Anudike-Uzomah, because Jackson fell on it, but the ball kind of squirted out, and you can see him kind of Anudike-Uzomah recovering the ball right here. So it actually takes a minute or half a second. It's someone kind of trailing the play who makes a heads-up play and gets the ball as it squirts out. One other kind of big point to consider on this play. So let's watch Lamar now. One part is that it ends up being play action, which, like we said, that's not ideal when you're being blitzed. So Jackson doesn't even have eyes on the field yet now, right? And so now he's only got two guys out in pass patterns. Oops. And then Henry is completing the play action. He's not going to leak out until later. And the Chiefs, he's got eyes on Henry. Bolton's playing robber. We were manned up. So Jackson, and we got a deep defender. Jackson doesn't really have anything right now, right, which helps contribute to the sack. Now he's at the back of his drop, and Bolton's position, actually, for all the grief that Bolton has gotten and will even get in this film review about his coverage, he prevents a window for a throw right now, right? Jackson's about to hit the back of his drop. In theory, if Bolton's not in that window, he's got to throw here. But he can't make that throw because of where Bolton's positioned, and if you look where Chris Jones is here, Jackson ends up having to hold that ball and step up, and that's enough time, because now he's open. But that was enough time for Chris Jones to get his arm as he's trying to throw, and that's what led to the sack. So credit to Bolton for where he is right here, because that caused Jackson to step up and take that extra half second that allowed Chris Jones to collect the sack here. Now we can see it from this view here. So here are the two, the guard and the tackle, that are going to double team Chris Jones. Watch how he gets to the tackle's outside shoulder and just gets around him. And see how he moved over here? It's almost like he knew that this was coming. He's trying to get to the outside shoulder of the tackle, and he's essentially playing like an edge rusher. He's on the outside edge of the tackle right here. And look, he plays it like an edge rusher coming around, and it makes the double team entirely inconsequential. He manages to get around everything right there, and then watch as he closes on Lamar. This is where Lamar hits the back of his drop, and Nick Bolton is in the way for him not to have a throw right there. So he has to step up, and now Zay Flowers comes open. Look what's happening. Chris Jones is already raking over Lamar's elbow, and as he tries to get his arm back, Chris Jones causes that fumble, and you can see the ball is right here. And here's Felix Anudike-Uzomah. Comes in, falls on that fumble. Chiefs ball. The next play that we're going to look at comes a little bit later in the game. So we just saw the fumble. The Chiefs kicked a field goal on that drive. They weren't really able to move the ball after recovering the fumble. So the Chiefs are up 10-7, and the Ravens find themselves in a 4th and short situation, and they want to go for it. So as we zoom out, you can see the sticks right here. So it looks like where the ball is placed is about 4th and 3. And so the beginning of this is informative. It's kind of nice that we get to see the beginning. So if you notice, the Ravens break out of their huddle really quickly, right? They break out of their huddle. The Chiefs are scrambling to get set, and the Ravens snap the ball pretty quickly within about 5 seconds, or even less maybe, or within 5 seconds of breaking out of the huddle. So they're trying to create some confusion on the Chiefs' end. And one might argue that it kind of backfired. It's a double-edged sword to do this. On one end, and it's nice to not let the defense get lined up, but on your end as an offense, it gives you less information about what the defense is doing. And I think that, it's kind of hard when plays go wrong to exactly figure out what went wrong, but I think that contributed to the Ravens, not recognizing what the Chiefs were trying to do on this play. So this fourth down play, ultimately what the Ravens try to do, what it looks like is it's kind of an option for Lamar Jackson that he can either run the ball or he can pass this off. And the reason why it looks that way is, look, we've got a pulling lineman here, and we've got Patrick Ricard coming out behind him so the left guard and the fullback, who's lined in kind of in this H-back position, are both pulling. So I think Lamar, if he wants to, can follow them and run this ball. Or if he likes what he's seeing out here, he can make a quick throw. Now, if he's going to make the throw, he's going to have to make it quick because linemen are run blocking here. And so if he throws it after they've gotten, for example, here, a couple yards down the field, then they'll get penalized for an eligible man downfield. So he has to make a quick decision about whether this throw is there. And if the throw is not there immediately, then he's going to follow and run, is how it seems to be designed. What it looks like based on what they had these two receivers do is it looks like the Ravens are anticipating the Chiefs to be in man coverage, and Aguilar is going to run, hoping that Trent McDuffie is going to run with him and clear out a space so that Zay Flowers, who they think, is supposed to be guarded by Justin Reid, is going to be open and can make a catch and get the first down because Justin Reid's got a long way to go. If you can see from the beginning, they have Zay Flowers when they come out of the huddle. The part of the reason they went so fast is Zay Flowers kind of crouches down behind the line. He's trying to hide. And you can tell that Justin Reid has no idea where he is, because he's kind of like, what am I doing? And I'm not sure if, I don't know that Zay Flowers was his man. I mean, it doesn't seem so, because if you look at Trent McDuffie, he's playing zone. So it's unlikely that Trent McDuffie is going to play zone and Justin Reid's going to be manned up on Zay Flowers. So it looks like they're in a zone coverage, which is what ultimately seems to ruin this play, as Aguilar runs as if McDuffie is going to run with him, but McDuffie does not run with him. And he hangs out, and he's there to try to make an open field tackle, which he successfully does. Now, Trent McDuffie, for those of you who remember, even from last year, he had the famous tackle of Tyreek Hill, which led to a fumble recovery and then lateral for touchdown in the game in Germany against the Dolphins. So McDuffie is an incredible open field tackler. So kind of regardless of what your plan is, like even if Aguilar was going to ultimately end up blocking McDuffie, I would just argue that you don't want your kind of gotta have it play to be testing Trent McDuffie out in the flat. I wouldn't put it at all past him to slip a block and make this tackle anyway. But you certainly don't want a situation where he's not being blocked, he's coming unblocked, it's one-on-one. McDuffie's going to make that tackle, and he did in this situation. But my understanding of kind of what went wrong, I think, is that this play was assuming that the Chiefs were in man and he would run with him. And part of the reason the Ravens didn't know what the Chiefs were doing was because they came out quickly and just tried to snap the ball immediately, and so did not do anything to try to figure out what the Chiefs were doing in coverage. And the ultimate play that they ran was not a play that was suited for what the Chiefs were doing in coverage. You get a better look at it here. Look, the Chiefs are getting guys like running off the field still. Ravens break the huddle real quick. They're just trying to trick the Chiefs. There is some discombobulation, but the Chiefs end up getting lined up, and the Ravens end up in a situation where you have possibly the best tackling corner in the league. One-on-one in the flat, makes the tackle, and turnover on downs. All right, this is an incredibly fun play, and it's fun for a couple of reasons, but let's kind of set the scene here. We've got a 3rd and 12 for the Chiefs now at about their own just over 46-yard line. They are up 10-7, so this is on the drive immediately after the Ravens turnover on downs, and they've got a 3rd down situation here, 3rd and 12. And so the first thing I want to note about this play is how good the Ravens are at disguising their coverages, because I felt like they did a great job on this play. If we start here, you see the Chiefs have one running back on the field, and they've got one tight end. Running back, one tight end. That gives us 11 personnel, and there are 3 wide receivers here. It looks like we've got Rashee Rice down here. That's Xavier Worthy in the slot, and Justin Watson up there. So let's look at what the Ravens are doing in coverage, right? They initially look like they could be manned up. They've got guys lined up across. It kind of looks like this could be cover 1. Then the question, they've got 5 down here, so maybe the linebacker is taking him, and one of these guys will be a robber, and one of these guys will be a deep safety. That's kind of what it looks like here. Well, then the Chiefs are going to motion Rashee Rice across. And Rashee Rice comes across, and nobody runs with him, which often makes you think then that they are in zone coverage, you know. Nobody came with him. But ultimately what happens is they actually are in a cover 1 man. And what it looks like happened is in this alignment, they were going to have him guard him guard Kelce. And basically what we just said. And then you'll get the back, and one of these guys will be robber, and one of these guys will be a deep safety. Well, now Rice has changed, and so instead of having Rice's man follow him, they've just changed assignments. Now it's you're going to take him, he's going to end up becoming the robber, he's deep, now he's got Rice, and we still are manned up this way. So they just changed responsibilities but had no one run with Rice. So it's a kind of well-disguised man coverage. It kind of initially to the novice viewer, it looks like it's zone coverage because no one's running with a man, but they just changed responsibilities and they're ready to go with man coverage. All right, so now Mahomes drops back and holds this ball and ends up getting pressure from his right side. If you look, he's at the back of his drop. He doesn't have anything. Nobody open, not open. The robber, they ended up helping. Hamilton ended up helping on Kelce, so he's like, for all intents and purposes, he's currently double teamed. So nowhere to go. Mahomes, at this point, decides he has to escape. If you look, he still doesn't really have anyone open. Kelce sees what's going on, and what Kelce does here is very cool, in my opinion. So if you notice, Mahomes over here is starting to roll to his right? He's escaping to his right. You can see right here. And watch Kelce. Kelce has his eyes on Mahomes, and he's got some room on the right a little bit to go. But what does Kelce do? Watch Kelce closely. Remember, he sees what's happening. Mahomes is going this way. So now look at Kelce. Kelce doubles back to his left. And he's doing this completely intentionally. He's looked back there. He saw what's happening. He's just setting his defender up. So he just doubles back to his left a little bit to try to get his defender moving this way, and then cuts back over to the right. I mean, this is what makes Kelce different from other people. He's planning out. He knows what he's doing. And look at the separation that he's created. Now, at the same time that Mahomes has gotten free to make a throw, Kelce has created separation. Mahomes is able to get him the ball. I mean, this is why they work so well in concert. I mean, this is to have the presence of mind here he's ad-libbing. The play's broken down. He knows he's going to try to escape to the right. He's got eyes on him. He can see that. And so his decision here is to turn back to his left while Mahomes is trying to get free to get his defender going this way and then double back around, and the timing works out perfectly so Mahomes is ready for that throw. Huge first down. I mean, that is such high-level football. It's unbelievable. We can see the escape. So here you can see nobody running with Rice, right? So, again, that was a nice coverage, disguise. Here, the rush gets home, and it's right about here that Kelce seems to decide, we can't see it on this feed, to double back. Mahomes gets free, and what a throw. Man, the two of them play so well together, but Kelce's football IQ is something that just never ceases to amaze. He really is incredible. Now we've got a play that a little more frustrating to Chiefs fans, and I'm sure every Chiefs fan wishes could have had back. At this point, we are at 13-7 Chiefs. The first half is winding down. The Ravens have just missed a field goal, and the Chiefs are trying to come down and hopefully add to their lead before halftime. On this play, the Chiefs are in 12 personnel. They've got one running back, and they've got two tight ends over here. That's Noah Gray and Travis Kelce, and so they've got two wide receivers. The Ravens end up playing a cover 2 zone, so they get their safeties covering the 2 deep halves, and they get their linebackers and corners to drop back into cloud zones, and they're not really worried about the flats up here. Everybody just kind of drifts back. This is more commonly seen in these 2-minute situations where you're kind of allowing short passes to happen. The Chiefs end up running a route combination where they get Travis Kelce ends up running kind of an out. Xavier Worthy kind of runs a curl. Noah Gray comes out and runs a corner. Rashee Rice ends up coming up and finding a soft spot in the zone and actually getting open nicely in the middle of the zone. So we can run this. So here's Kelce's out. He's actually open here, and Mahomes kind of looks at him. He could have tried to hit him there. It's possible, too, that he was getting his eyes this way to try to move some of the zone defenders to create this opening for Rashee Rice that ends up being there. Worthy's coming on his, and here comes Gray on the corner. So the other thing to note is that Creed Humphrey is getting walked back by 98, which ultimately ends up being a problem on this play. But if you look, Mahomes looks over at Kelce. Maybe he's not comfortable with how close the defender is. He doesn't want someone to drive on this ball. So he turns that down. He looks over, and look at Rice getting open in the middle of the field. Mahomes sees that and attempts to make a throw, but unfortunately Creed's defender has walked him all the way back into Mahomes, and he's able to hit Mahomes as he throws. Mahomes throws falling back and doesn't get nearly enough on this throw. He's trying to get it over here, ends up being thrown to about there, and Roquan Smith is able to get down and intercept it. Unfortunate, he had a guy open, but it was a great play by the defensive tackle here on Creed. Creed is usually someone who doesn't get overpowered. As you can see it here, Creed kind of gets walked back. Mahomes is looking over to his right. Roquan Smith does actually kind of move over there to the right. It looks like Mahomes is considering that throw, but ultimately doesn't like it, probably because of the proximity of the defender to Kelce. And you can see right there the defender's arm hit him in the back. He just gets enough to get Mahomes to not be able to put his full strength into this throw, and it's underthrown, and Roquan Smith is able to intercept it. Smith did well to kind of come back. If you notice, he's kind of drifting over here. If he had continued his drift, he wouldn't have been in position to intercept it, but he sees Mahomes turning around and he's able to stop his motion and come back. It's a really good play by Smith. But unfortunate in that situation for the Chiefs. They end up giving up a field goal, and so they go into half up 13-10. All right, this is a pretty cool play to look at. We're now in the third quarter. Chiefs still up 13-10. They got the ball first to start the third quarter, and this is their drive. Here we have got the Chiefs in 11 personnel. So they've got one running back, Samaje Perine, and one tight end, that's Travis Kelce. Their wide receivers are Justin Watson, Rashee Rice, and Xavier Worthy. And if you look at the Ravens, they look to be in kind of a cover 2 show, right? They've got 2 deep safeties. What they end up doing, actually, though, is they roll one safety down at the snap, and so they're at cover 1, and look how far their one safety, Kyle Hamilton, is shaded over. You know, usually when you have cover 1, you've got a safety out in the middle of the field, but this is all about respect for Xavier Worthy. They're worried about his speed, so they've got the safety shaded all the way over to his side. Now, what the Chiefs end up doing is Worthy's going to come in here and run a curl. Kelce's going to come here and run a curl. Watson's going to come here and run a curl. And the Chiefs seem to be anticipating correctly that the defense is going to devote a lot of attention to Kelce. So they have this safety come down as like a robber, but really he becomes like a pseudo double team for Kelce. I mean, they're playing zone. So they're playing zone with the exception of this guy who's going to come out into the flat. And the Chiefs correctly guessed that they're going to dedicate a lot of attention to this Kelce curl. Whenever Kelce does anything, he draws attention. So they run this route very nicely where they have Kelce come and curl, and they're going to have Rice come in right behind. And look what happens. So Kelce curls, Rice comes behind, and there's this wide open void of space because the 2 defenders are on Kelce. Mahomes is ready for it, gets that throw out now right over the top of the defenders to Rice. Rice, being so good on the run, manages to make Kyle Hamilton miss, and look at all those yards after the catch. But that play design is very cool. You really want to watch Kelce and Rice in tandem as Kelce comes. Look at the defensive attention here, giving Rice a void to just run right by it, and that's what he does. Great play design by Andy Reid, understanding the gravity that Kelce has on the field and way to utilize it. And now if you watch this from the end zone cam view, look at Mahomes even kind of like pump toward Kelce. So watch this again. He's like looking at Kelce, pumps toward him, and then right over the top. So this looks like the Chiefs were looking for this the whole time. Look, Mahomes is here pump faking as if he's like ready for that to come down. Look at Roquan Smith stopping his tracks right here. Look, 32 is also flat-footed at this point as Kelce runs his curl, but this is where Mahomes was looking the whole time, right over the top. Nice job making Hamilton miss. Big play for Rice. So really cool play design from the Chiefs, and just the timing, they did it perfectly, knew what they were looking for. Big gain. Now we've got another really cool play design for the Chiefs. We're still in the third quarter, still up 13-10 after that long play to Rice. And let's see what the Chiefs have for us now. They're in a really cool formation. So this is 12 personnel. Here's the one running back, and the 2 tight ends are actually in the sidecar here beside Mahomes in the backfield. That's Noah Gray and Travis Kelce. If you look at how the Ravens are set up, the Ravens are in a cover 2. They've got 2 deep safeties that'll each take a deep half, and they're playing that cover 2 zone. And so one thing that teams do against zones, one kind of common zone beating concept is called a flood concept. Idea being that you flood a zone with more receivers than there are defenders in that area. Because when you have zone defense, you're really trying to cover the whole field. So you have players that are assigned certain spaces. So if you can get a lot of receivers in one space, then you can try to make zone defenders have to choose between players and leave people open. So the way that the Chiefs flood this is they send Xavier Worthy deep toward the right. Kelce is going to come on an intermediate route, and Noah Gray is going to come shallow. So they're trying to high-low the defenders here and make them make decisions about what they're going to do. So look at these three and how they split up and how they attack the zones to the right. So you can see Gray is here, Kelce is intermediate, Worthy is deep. And look at how far back these safeties are respecting Worthy's speed. That creates, these big voids between defenders where receivers can get open. And in particular, so you see these defenders will have to decide whether to get the high guy or the low guy, and they can create gaps. But in particular, I want you to watch Roquan Smith, who's one of the middle defenders, and the gravity, again, that Kelce has. So Roquan Smith is following Kelce in his intermediate flood toward the right. And Smith, being a smart defender, might notice the flood concept and feeling like, it's more likely that you're going to throw toward the flood. Plus, Kelce always gets a lot of attention. So he kind of cheats over toward Kelce. And what that does is it creates a wide opening in the middle of the field. And Justin Watson just goes and sits there in the area vacated by Roquan Smith. Mahomes sees him and hits him and gets a huge gain. So this was a great play design and a great example of the gravity of Kelce. The other thing I would want to say is, besides the threat of Kelce leading Roquan Smith to come here, part of this also is Mahomes' movement. So if we watch Mahomes comes out to the right, and Smith is also watching Mahomes. So he's drifting with Mahomes as Kelce moves over, and that helps get him over to the right, so to the offense's right. So I think Kelce's gravity, the flood concept, having so many receivers over here on the right, and Mahomes' movement to the right all together combined to bring Roquan Smith over from the middle to the right and create this big void for Justin Watson to sit in. Easy pitch and catch and a first down. You can see it here from the end zone cam. So this is Noah Gray. He's going to be the one that takes the shallow route. Kelce is going to come out and run an intermediate route. Roquan Smith is the guy that we want to watch. He's like the linebacker who's covering here in the middle. See how Mahomes moves out to the right, and that helps to influence Roquan to go in this direction. You can see there's Justin Watson, who's going to be coming here and finding a void in the middle of the zone. So Mahomes gets away from that edge, wide open Justin Watson. Easy first down. So play design plus understanding which of your players get more attention, plus the quarterback understanding how to use movement to create openings, all combined to create a nice void for Justin Watson, who was able to see the zone and understand where he needed to stop and sit too. All of that combined leads to a big first down. All right, so this is another play that's tough watch for Chiefs fans. And really, one could consider this like the turning point in the game. At this point, the Chiefs are up 20-10. The Ravens, only 10 points to this point. They scored a touchdown on their opening drive, so they've only had 3 points from there, and their 3 points were due to a Mahomes interception on the plus side of the field for the Ravens. So they've really kind of struggled to score. The Chiefs kind of figured out their offense in the second half, scored a touchdown, and this play kind of really turned things around and made it feel like a football game again. And kind of what's going on with the Ravens here is they have got 2 tight ends and 1 running back on the field. So that's 12 personnel, and they've got 2 wide receivers. And what this play is Zay Flowers ends up running like a 9 route. Isaiah Likely ends up, well, let's let Andrews come in motion. I think Andrews is going to come across the field first before we talk about here. So Andrews comes across the field. So Isaiah Likely is going to run like an in cut, and the receivers, so this receiver is going to run a dig, and Andrews is also going to run a dig. But Likely's route is kind of more shallow. And the Chiefs are running cover 2 deep safeties, and they've got like a man match concept going on underneath. And you can really see it best with Trent McDuffie, who's initially unlikely, and with Nick Bolton. So watch what happens. So McDuffie's going to fake a blitz, and Brian Cook comes down to kind of help sell that, and then they retreat. But if you look, McDuffie's got Likely, but then as Likely decides to come inside, he kind of passes him off to Bolton, and then McDuffie ends up taking Justice Hill. So they're running kind of a man match. And another way that you see that is Tranquil is running with Mark Andrews up until Andrews gets sufficient depth, and then Justin Reid ends up dropping back, and Tranquil ends up kind of hanging out in the middle of the field. Ultimately here with Bolton unlikely, we got manned up here, we've got Andrews kind of covered from both sides, Watson's running with Flowers. This play is pretty well covered, and it really comes down to Lamar Jackson's escapability. So your coverage team is only going to be able to hang on for so long, and unfortunately the pass rush can't get to Jackson. And as he escapes, Isaiah Likely takes his route and turns it upfield. And, you know, Nick Bolton, for all of his positives, and not only, you know, Nick Bolton struggles in coverage. He does. And he has missed a lot of time with an injury recently, and so he just didn't look as good as, you know, baseline Nick Bolton looks. Baseline Nick Bolton isn't that great in coverage, and I just feel like he looked even worse. He just didn't look like he quite had it all yet. And hopefully as he, you know, is back in the fold full time, he'll kind of get back to how he was playing before. But in any case, coverage is not his strong suit, and he's in a tough spot as Jackson escapes to the right and just throws one up while his back is turned. You know, it's always tough to get a throw when your back is turned. It's an underthrown ball, and Nick Bolton is not, you know, a big ball skills guy anyway. I mean, it's a tough spot. Like, a really good coverage linebacker might be able to deal with that, but that's tough. But I think the thing that really is rough about this play is, like, now you can't not get hands on him. This is where I think this play really broke down. At the very least, if you can't make the tackle here, if you can slow him down to allow your reinforcements to come in, but Bolton makes a mess of this too, and likely ends up coming down the sideline and scoring. And that play ended up really turning around how this game was going. But if you notice, you know, so here from the end zone view, so if we watch Bolton, he's going to pick up Likely, and Likely is going to be coming across like this. Bolton runs with him fine, and then Jackson escapes, and this is a tough spot. You see Bolton's head's around, he cannot locate the ball. Likely knows where the ball is, and it being underthrown is whenever your head is not turned. The ball being underthrown is really tough, right? Like, if the ball is going to hit you both in stride, like, you can run through it and just get your hands up. But if you see the receiver stopping, you don't know where the ball is, the chance of a pass interference goes up. And, you know, stopping, turning around, and finding the ball is very tough. So the underthrown ball is really rough in that situation. But this is where Bolton, you really hope that he could come under control here and at least prevent Likely from escaping long enough to get reinforcements in, but he wasn't able to do that and likely ends up scoring. That takes the game from 20-10 to 20-17, and now we've got a ball game. Now we've got the Chiefs driving. They are up 20-17, having just given up the long touchdown to Isaiah Likely, and they're trying to answer. So this is a play that is electric and exciting, and I think first we should appreciate it for that and then try to figure out what the heck happened, and I don't know that we're going to come up with a great answer. But this is a play here in 11 personnel, or one running back is Isaiah Pacheco, one tight end is Travis Kelce, and we've got Rashee Rice, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Xavier Worthy. And this is a play where Xavier Worthy is going to get past Marlon Humphrey and catch a play for a touchdown. Let's just appreciate that first, because it's so much fun having Xavier Worthy on the team. So let's see him in action. Holmes drops back, Worthy gets past Humphrey, and that's about as easy of a touchdown as Mahomes is going to have all year. And we can watch it from the end zone view. Walk-in touchdown. And as you can see in the bottom right corner, Marlon Humphrey looks pretty frustrated. And one can understand why when you go back and kind of watch the beginning part of this play. So Marlon Humphrey comes up to play Worthy at the line and lets him run by. And this technique is used by a corner who thinks he has help deep. But as you can tell, he does not have help deep. And so the big question is, why not? Who's wrong here? Well, the other thing that's telling is if you look at the safety on this play, the only guy who plays deep, look at him come out and cover the half. That's the way that you play when you're anticipating that there's another safety who's going to cover this half. Otherwise, you kind of stay toward the middle of the field. Or, honestly, if you're going to shade anyway, you're probably going to shade toward the fastest guy in the field, so you'd expect him to shade that way. So the fact that this safety in the middle of the field moved over to his right at the snap makes you feel like he thought somebody was going to come back here. And now the other question is who? Who is the person that was supposed to come back there? So if we start this from the beginning, a couple things are interesting. So the Chiefs run motion. So right now, Kyle Hamilton, he is a safety. And number 32, who's, I believe his name is Marcus Williams, is a safety. So those are probably, this guy ends up over here. So these two are probably our prime candidates as who should have been back, assuming that's the play call. But he played it that way, and he played it that way. So at least a couple people thought that that was the play call, that there were going to be two deep safeties. One thing that's interesting is if you notice as Juju starts going in motion, watch how both of these guys initially start to go with him. And then Williams sees Hamilton go with him and stays back. So that's odd. It's almost like, I don't know. And then, normally if you've got somebody running with someone, this person is not anticipating being a deep half safety, right? So it is weird. The first indication of some sort of confusion is these two don't seem to understand what each other's responsibilities are. And then Williams saw Hamilton go, so he let him go. Williams kind of feels like he thinks he's playing a robber. And Hamilton is playing this as if it's cover one. Williams is here. Hamilton is here. I mean, the person that does seem like the most redundant on this play is probably Hamilton. I mean, I doubt that their play called for like that much attention to Juju Smith-Schuster. So if I were like, maybe the idea is that Hamilton should have been the deep half, but then the question is, what if the Chiefs hadn't motioned Juju? I mean, both of the safeties are over here. Well, the one thing to think about that is that if you look at our guy who did play safety, watch what he does as Hamilton comes across. So watch him. He kind of shifts over to the right. So it's almost like he feels like maybe he was going to be here and he thought he was going to drop back. But then watch where he is right now. He's like just to the left of the middle of the field. And then he's kind of just to the right of the middle of the field once Hamilton moves over. So it kind of makes me feel like his assumption was in this orientation, he was here, and then when Hamilton came across, maybe as like a disguise of the fact that he's playing cover 2, he was anticipating Hamilton was going to drop. I mean, so was Humphrey. Humphrey was clearly anticipating someone was going to drop, and I imagine it's Hamilton. I don't think he thought Williams was going to hightail it over. Like, if Williams is going to drop, right, then you think he's going here and he's going back, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense to have this defender come back here and this defender come here. So the more I think about it, the more I feel like the defense is operating as if Kyle Hamilton was supposed to come back in this zone and he was supposed to be the deep help for Marlon Humphrey, who kind of came up on Worthy here and let Worthy by because he thought he had deep help. I think they thought at the snap he's going. But he did not, and like he's not needed here. You've got him. Humphrey believes that he should be helping out in the flat and that Hamilton should be coming back. That is my best guess as far as what happened. But in any case, it was a blown coverage, big play for the Chiefs, and turned out to be the game-winning touchdown. That got the Chiefs up to 27-17, and the final score ended up being 27-20. So, big play for the Chiefs. Fortunate that the Ravens blew that coverage, and it's nice that they have such a dangerous team at this point where if you're going to blow a coverage like that, it might. All right, we are now at 27-20 Chiefs. Time is winding down. This ends up being the second to last play of the game, and I think it might end up being the forgotten play from this game. And so let's break it down. The Ravens here are in 11 personnel. They got Hill and Andrews are their running back and tight end, and then they've got 3 wide receivers. And what they end up running is Aguilar is going to come out here. Flowers is going to end up running a post. Bateman is going to kind of run over the middle and then come to the goal line. And Andrews, where does he go? He, I think, goes... Oh, he's just going to come to the sticks and occupy over here. And the Chiefs, if you notice, are just kind of like dropping in what looks like a more like cover 4 cloud coverage. They got Watson coming back. Here's Reid, Cook, and Williams over there. And they've got McDuffie, Bolton, and Tranquil helping underneath. One really interesting thing is the Ravens slide away from Chris Jones and just use Justice Hill to block him. Who, I mean, I guess what their thought process is they trust Lamar escaping to his right so that if they kind of just put some kind of impeding force in front of Chris Jones, that should be good enough, as Jackson's probably going to run around anyway. I don't know. It's an interesting choice of what to do. But interestingly, so, I'm guessing Reid is here focused on Andrews coming up to the sticks, and Bateman comes up, which draws Bolton's attention. And I think as Flowers comes across the middle, maybe Cook is thinking that Reid's going to take him, but Reid is occupied. So I'm not really sure why Cook kind of lets Flowers go here. I mean, there's clearly nobody. Like, look at Reid and Tranquil. I don't know what Cook was thinking to kind of let Flowers go, but if you look at down here at Jackson, he is able to buy some time, get himself free, and Flowers gets dropped by Cook and is wide open, streaking under the shadow of the goalpost. And honestly, Lamar Jackson just misses him. Like, he's there. There is nobody in front of him. All these guys are there. Like, you put a ball right here because he's at full run. I mean, that's a touchdown. And Lamar just straight up misses him. Like, this ball is way behind him. Flowers stopped and did his best, but there's no chance. Like, this throw is... If this throw is even close anywhere, like anywhere in this area, that's a touchdown easy. And Lamar just flat out missed it. I mean, Lamar did great to get to where he was, like, it's not easy running around, cutting through this gap, getting past Chris Jones, and then throwing over Leo Chanel. But, oh man, I can't. I mean, he's gotta wish he had that throwback. You can see the Chris Jones coming. He's only going to have to contend with Justice Hill because the whole line shifts this way. And Jackson gets out. He makes the throw, but, I mean, this is when Zay Flowers stopped and tried to come back. Look how far off this ball is. Like, you really missed him. And that would have been an easy touchdown. And it looks like the Ravens would have gone for 2. And finally, the famous play from this game. Although, I'm not going to have all the fancy images of Likely's toe being out of bounds, but we can at least see how the play went. So here the Ravens set up in 12 personnel. 1 running back, 2 tight ends. I put Andrews up there and Likely down here. And they got Flowers and Bateman. And they basically just end up running their 4 guys into the end zone, and they kind of try to high-low. I think Likely ends up to the back. Bateman, I thought, was in the front of the end zone. Anyway, you can see them kind of set up. Andrews kind of turns here, Flowers in here, Likely ends up going back, and I think Bateman is going to end up going back too. Yeah, so they've got kind of 2 guys with more depth, 2 guys up front, and I think this play more than anything, the Chiefs kind of drop back and just try to cover every part of the end zone, but this play more than anything shows the dangerousness of a running quarterback. It's Mahomes, we talked about in an early video, how he was able to manipulate Roquan Smith with his movement. Look at Lamar Jackson kind of coming up in the pocket, and the threat of him running, what it does, even as he spins around and kind of escape. Look what happens to Tranquil and Bolton. So those 2 guys have a little more depth. Likely is running toward the back of the end zone. These 2 see Jackson running around and can't help but move up a little bit. And that is what creates this huge void for Likely in the back of the end zone. And so Jackson puts it up there, and they do a good job of closing the gap. One would argue that, if this throw weren't so high, but in theory you could be worried about Bolton jumping, and he didn't jump. But in theory, that could be a concern. But, he gets it to him back in the end zone, and sometimes luck just isn't on your side, He's toe was a fraction of an inch out of bounds, and it's an incomplete pass. But this was all possible because look how far forward Jackson was able to get these guys to come with his movement and the risk of him running. So that opening was created, but just was out of bounds, fortunately for Chiefs fans. And now you can see his movement here on this view. I mean, he's so dangerous. You know, he's coming around. They think he's going to run. He stops and fires, and Likely's toe is just out of bounds, and that's the difference in a game. And who knows? It looks like the Ravens would have gone for 2, so at that point, if Likely were in bounds, it would have kind of been a coin flip, 50-50, about to see who would end up winning the game. Well, that's it for the Week 1 film review. Appreciate those of you who are following along. We will be releasing the Steelers-Falcons film review once that comes out. We also will be recording, Chris and I will be recording a recap of Week 1 on Monday, and we will drop that Monday night, probably during the Jets-49ers game, so we won't be talking about that game, but we will be releasing that. And then whenever the All-22 comes out of Steelers-Falcons, we'll get an All-22 review of that game as well. Again, thanks to all of you that follow along on all forms of social media. Again, on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, we're at STCF715. Follow us on Twitter if you want more like live stuff during games and right after games. We'll have conversation. You can get the audio version of our podcasts on whatever app you download podcasts on. The podcast is called Steeler Thoughts and Chief Feelings. Thanks to all of you that follow along, and until next time.